get good advice. Do not give up. Listen here to AJ's part, but she takes science and a little art, so you can recover hard, recover smart, recover hard, recover smart. Trust your mind, trust your heart, recover hard, recover smart, recover smart.
Kayaker, runner, and former netballer AJ Davis ruptured her ACL during a netball game on November the 19th, 2024. In Recover Hard, Recover Smart, AJ interviews athletes, coaches, and other experts to learn real-world insight to help guide all sports people through the dark and challenging journey of recovering from injury.
Recover smart. Recover smart.
Hi, AJ Davis here. Thanks for tuning into this chat with Harry Moffitt. Harry is an ex-SAS soldier, now psychologist, and a few things that surprised me in the chat that I want to draw your attention to are why having a reliable support team of social connections is crucial in terms of recovery and sport, and the importance of thinking long-term about life after your first career, whether that's sport or the army or something else. I hope you find this helpful. My next guest on the podcast is Harry Moffitt, a former SAS soldier turned psychologist. He will have some unique insights to bring to the topic of injury recovery because he's been pretty banged up over his career, including a few near-death experiences, broken toes, torn and twisted ankles, dislocations, lacerations, fractures to his face, head and hands. He has been blown up, burned, had a machete blow to his leg, been operated on dozens of times, including both knees, torn just about everything from hamstrings to biceps to the cartilage and ligaments in his back, hips and shoulders. He says his aching body is a constant reminder of the replacements and surgeries to come as well. And we should mention that there has also been multiple exotic diseases and illnesses and toxic chemical exposures. Welcome, Harry.
How do I survive any or all of that?
Who knows?
That was out of my book, by the way. There wasn't something you grafted up, was it, AJ?
Yeah, that's a list of injuries from your book, The Fourth Pillar, and we'll mention that again at the end. But first, were some of those injuries more challenging to recover from than others? And if so, was that because of the nature of the injury or more to do with your mindset?
Yeah, a bit of both, I think. I think the hardest injuries mentally are those that you know are going to be a long-term comeback and that are going to take a lot of work, both physically and mentally, to come back from. For example, when I was involved in a explosion in 2008, it was about 6 months or more to come back from that. And by the time I got back to full fighting weight, it was probably a 12-month rehab. I also did an ACL, which is a long, really, really hard to come back from those, just because the atrophy that you have in that leg because you're not using it for so long. It's never really recovered. Actually, they generally don't. But when I say recovered, the full volume. And that's hard because it's lonely. You're by yourself, even though you might be at work and around colleagues and you've got a lot of support staff helping you. There's a lot of self-doubt. Will I get back? There's a bit of shame that you're not kind of available to help other people. So I think those ones where you know you're going to be out for a long while are definitely the most challenging, and mentally the self-doubt, the loneliness, and whether it's embarrassment or shame that you can't complete the role you're hired to do. I think that makes it hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I set my ACL, I thought it was going to be the end of my netball and kayaking journey, and it scared me because that was like everything to me. And I did get encouragement from my physios and coaches who helped me set milestones. But if I'm really honest, the main thing that got me back was that I needed to be back at sport because that was my everything. And Also, my fellow kayaker Jazz, she was like, said she was going to force me to go to training if I ever decided to quit after I didn't think I was going to be back. Does it surprise you that it was my own need and the support of a friend that got me through? And without that, I doubt the great advice would have helped.
Yeah, humans are built of relationships. If you think about it, without relationships, there's not much meaning in the world. And I think that's a really key point, AJ, that you make, that having that support around you is critical. So if you're going to do something that's, of these amazing human endeavors, whether it's in athletics or military or emergency medicine and all these types of things, there's many amazing humans doing many amazing things around the world. Building a strong social network and being aware of that social network around you is a really resilience enhancing aspect of being a performer or doing what you want to do. So I'm glad to hear that, and having a good friend who can come along and occasionally tell you to toughen up, get on with it. That's not a bad thing either.
Yeah. Did you have a great support team when you were going through all of that?
Yeah, definitely. And we're lucky enough in my time in the SAS, and now I see it in elite sports. They've got the resources and time. They've got the physios, the strength and conditioning staff, the psychologists, and much more around them. So they're being tended to all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you mentioned, the Institute of Sport has a good focus on systems to help athletes get back to their sports. But in your book, you talk a lot about how sports clubs should be helping athletes think even more long-term than just the next game or season. What do you mean by that? And would it apply to me when I'm right at the start of my career?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is something still currently, but certainly in the past. Let's look at the military and athletics in particular, but it also has implications, as I said, for emergency medicine, for first responders, and even in the corporate world. We're so focused when we're young and coming through the pipeline. We're so focused on the performance or the endeavour, whatever that might be, whether it's kayaking or playing football or netball, whatever the case may be. And all we want to do is be the best kayaker that we can possibly be. And that's fair. But what we're not doing is we're not looking at what's afterlife or what's outside of life, and we're in danger of just being defined as that one thing. And as you well know, life's bigger than just that. And so one of the problems at the end of, and you don't have to be a successful athlete, but for athletes, for example, at the end of their careers, which sometimes can be at the age of 25 or 30, even a professional career, they've still got 50 years of life left. And a lot of them find themselves without, or they feel like they've lost purpose, or they feel like they've lost their way or lost what they had. And I think we can do a lot more to help the person, the athlete or operator or artist inside their careers, to support them to build that ecosystem around them, so that they, whilst they want it, they can be committed to what they're doing. It's not all they see themselves as, and that their identity isn't just rowing a boat, kicking a ball, shooting a gun. It's a lot more than that. And I think we should start that very, very young, I think.
Yeah. Is that sort of what you do as a psychologist now to help athletes for after their sport and career?
Yeah, I'm involved in a couple of small groups that are looking at how to build the social system around them during their careers, so that they have options in life other than just sports. In the military, I set up a program called the Wanderers Education Program, which from the moment a soldier, a man or a woman, joins us in the unit, they're offered an education pathway. And it's not just tertiary or formal education. It can be small business, become a carpenter, or go on to tertiary education. But it's just something else that's in their backpack, because yourself, with your ACL, it's not the case always that your career's over, but there are some injuries that are career ending. And I suppose the point to make there's a very serious one, that you're in a serious game. It's a contact sport life, isn't it? So if you do have these unfortunate events, what is your plan B as an athlete? What am I going to do if I couldn't do this tomorrow? You've got to be something else, and that's kind of the point of it.
Yeah. In the early days of COVID, you were part of a TV show with Chris Hemsworth. It was called Limitless, and the idea was to create some SAS training so Chris could push himself to the limits. In the underwater challenges, he was struggling about how long you needed him to hold his breath, and you said to him, "You can go a lot longer than your body thinks you can." However, you also have a story about turning up to a football training when you were younger with sore hamstrings, and your coach said, "Oh, a hammy, just run it out," which caused a much worse injury. How do we know when our body can take more versus when our body actually needs rest?
Yeah, what a fantastic question. I wish I had had that for the book. We've put a lot of thought into it. That's awesome. So the Chris Hemsworth thing, it's actually beautiful how you've married those two things. Being underwater, we all know it's the most foreign of places for a human to find themselves, and particularly at the bottom of a 3-metre diving pool with your hands and feet bound, trying to retrieve a mask off the bottom. That desire to want to come to the surface is an obvious one and very, very overwhelming for anyone who's held their breath underwater. The urge is compelling. It's profound. But the truth is that you have a lot more time than you think. But because of how we think and we panic and anxiety, we allow anxiety to visit us. Your heart rate goes up, your oxygen use goes up, etc. So it's self-defeating by allowing that process. But if you relax underwater holding your breath, you can go for a lot longer than that urge to come to the surface. And that was my point to Chris Hemsworth. Under pressure in that environment, he didn't need any mind tricks or meditations or imagery or any of those types of mental skills that are, valuable. But at the bottom of the pool, holding his breath when all he wanted to do was come up, he just needed to know that someone else had been where he was, that someone else had endured what he was enduring. And he knew that I had it. And so when I told him, "You've got a lot more time," that's the message that I hope he's thinking about at the bottom of the pool. Harry said, "I've got a lot more time. So I'm going to trust him, and I'm going to stay down here and fight that urge and just get that thing, give myself another 5 or 10 seconds or longer to get the activity that we needed to be done. So that's the first thing I say. A lot of performance under pressure comes down to someone being there. They've got your back. Again, it's a social connection, isn't it? And someone's also been where you've been. So when you did your ACL, speaking to people who've had injuries before really helps you.
Mm.
With the hammy, it's such a great, so we're only just discovering what the mental barriers are that we can overcome as humans. In a lot of ways, psychology is still in its infancy. I call it a bit of a wild west at times because there's an expert in this and an expert in that, and you don't know what to believe. And everyone's going, "Oh, you've got to do these 10 wonderful things before breakfast,"
Oh, yeah.
to do. And it's a lot of it's BS, if you'll excuse my language. But with the hammy, that's just an idea of where not only a person at the bottom of the pool has limited thinking about their own capacity, but the hamstring thing, back in when I was coming through football, you ran hammies out. That was kind of what the coaches would say: "Go and run the hammy out." It's not if you just jog lightly, it'll heal it. But they were the limitations of our understanding back then. And now we know that that's not a good thing in 2025. It's the same when I was playing football and basketball back in the day. People were having a smoke and an orange at half time, and nutrition really wasn't a thing, and you never saw a psychologist near a football club. But the hamstring analogy really is just an example of not only how people limit themselves, but how old industries and our organisational thinking can limit us as well.
Yeah. In your book, you talk about a grumpy sergeant major shouting at you to climb up that sand dune and let the hill do its work. There is a lot of talk about having an inner coach or inner voice. Should it be a grumpy sergeant or should it be a gentler voice?
Yeah, that's great. I would say that you need a number of voices in your head as a psychologist. I use this analogy a lot to try and explain to people that the negative voice in your head is not it's not inevitable. That you do have an option, and one of those options is in my mind. I'll use myself as an example. In my mind, early on when I was a lot younger than I am now, I labeled, labeling theory can work in psychology. It's where you label the feeling, the thought, the behavior, you label something to give it life, and then you can deal with it. I labeled my negative voice the commentator, always about the commentator, like in the commentary box, and Harry's, mucking it up again, and there's Harry failing again, and I missed the goal, and quite narrative. And I thought, well, okay, what about if I brought a commentator into the commentary box that was pro Harry? There's Harry, he kicked the goal. What a great bloke. I missed it, but he'll get it next time. The person who's an advocate for Harry. And then there's the moderate voice, I call him the Richie Benno, the one who's just objectively always saying, well, where's the evidence for that, Harry? So when I say I'm no good at something, the gentler voice will come through them and say, well, where's the evidence for that? You've done it 3 times in a row really well. You've only mucked it up once. It just means you're improving. So I guess that's what I'm saying is that we can train ourselves to have a range of voices. And on occasions in the military, a very serious job, there are occasions where you need that grumpy sergeant major to be in there and say, Harry, get off your ass and get up and get it done. And there's occasions in our life when we need someone or that voice, like your friend did when it's come and told you will be training. You need that friendlier voice, and we can work on that. And I find I'm a lot older and wiser. I hope I am now, but I've found that really has given me great comfort over my time introducing other voices into that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because we talk a lot about our inner critic at training, and our coaches say to eliminate it completely, but that's really hard to do, especially on the days where it's a bit tougher or harder. So I think incorporating both the gentler voice as well as that to kind of balance it out is a really good idea.
It's really, I would go as far as to say that it is impossible to silence the inner critic. In fact, the inner critic, you need it. We all need it. The inner critic is there for important times when you're maybe skylarking around or not thinking as best you are, or giddy with, a new partner or new friends or whatever. And that inner critic's there to go, hey, you're being a dickhead. Stop it. And you need to be better than this right now. And so we don't want to dull it. We just want to be able to have a balanced conversation in our head.
Mm-hmm. My dad wants me to read your book, The Fourth Pillar, and he thinks all sports people and coaches should read it. If I do, how can I get the most out of it? Well, the first thing I say, early in the book, is you need a dictionary and a pen for my book. If you read the book and you want life hacks or 10 wonderful things, as I said, to do to make your life better, it's not a book for you. It's a book that I hope makes you think for yourself, which is the most elite practice that any human can do. And if you can aspire to think for yourself, and that is, when you read a book, we don't just accept what is coming at us. We should question. If you can feel in your own intuition, you're reading something and go, I don't agree with that, because what does it do? It makes you feel maybe angry or frustrated or something. I don't agree with that. And to resist the urge to be angry or frustrated, I think better position is to say, I don't agree with that. Why don't I agree with that? And then interrogate that thought. So with my book, how you can get the most out of it is bring a pen or a highlighter or something, have a dictionary at hand, hopefully a real dictionary. Mm-hmm. And when something sparks your curiosity, whether that evokes anger or joy or sadness or surprise, whatever that evokes, it evokes a feeling in you. Stop, ask yourself why, make a note, circle, come back to it. If there's a word you don't know, don't take offense and think, get the dictionary out and learn a new word or a new concept.
This is how we practice our curiosity. And I think the most curious people are the most moderate people in a lot of ways, because they don't accept things only on face value and accept the emotion that arrives with them. They want to know more deeply, why do I feel like that? And that is a true essence of thinking, I think, thinking for yourself.
Interesting. I'll make sure to get a book and a pen. Thank you so much, Harry, for talking to me.
My pleasure, AJ. Thanks for having me on. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Recover Hard, Recover Smart. If you found this useful, AJ would really appreciate it if you let a friend know about it. She knows that recovery is hard, but this podcast is doing its best to shine a light on some smart ways of getting through it. If you'd like to learn more about AJ's story and this podcast and discover other resources and insights to help you on your recovery journey, visit this website, recoverhardrecoversmart.com.au. That's recoverhardrecoversmart.com.au.
Recover hard, recover smart, recover hard, recover smart.